the big problem of tempo, or better saying, the speed of a piece that I have to choose, I have to decide? Well, first of all, let's say that normally the speed is considered a constant, something that the composer gives you, and you cannot do anything. You have to take that speed and go for it. But Celibidache was of the idea that speed is absolutely not a constant, but is a condition by which the different sounds can put in relation one with the other. So it's a condition, it's not a constant. It's something that can vary, and you have to make a decision in order to allow the sounds to just, blend together in the right way and to have a good relation with the right nexuses, as I said in a former video, to make music alive. So let's try to analyze the situation. Well, first of all, if you are a composer, you certainly know that when you imagine the music, you are sitting on your desk and you're just writing down some ideas, some melody, and then you try to figure the harmony and you write it down. Maybe you think of some instruments that you want to use, the orchestration, and so on and on. You imagine the music, but you don't hear the music. The sounds are in your head, and somehow you think of the frequencies, the different, right? But you don't actually hear the phenomenon in its, in the full, in its fullness, right? You just imagine the sound and you write that down. And when you do that, you think of a certain speed because the melody maybe goes that way. And so, yeah, I think that could be that speed, and you maybe take note of that. But then, if you have the chance to finish your piece and go listen to rehearsal and concerto of that piece, 95% of the times, that composer, you will realize that maybe the speed that you wrote on the score was a little too fast. Maybe you have to slow that down. Why that? Because the composer is dumb? No, because we are not hearing the real sound with the fullness of every harmonic that that every sound has in itself. So when you hear them, you say, this is there's too much density here, so the passage needs a little more relaxation, and so on, and you change it. So if you think of this element, this is the first element that makes us think differently about the metronome indication. And then, talking for a little moment about the big, huge problem of the metronome indications in Beethoven's symphonies. Some people say you have to stick to it, because who are you to change Beethoven's indication? And some other people say, no, I have to change it. Well, first of all, I would like to say that most of symphonic works by Beethoven were incredibly written by this genius that was completely deaf. So when Beethoven wrote 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th symphony, he absolutely could not hear anything of that work. He imagined those works, and it's amazing, and thank God that we had such a genius. But he could not go to rehearsal or concerto listening to it. So he couldn't have a feedback about those problems that we've been discussing before. And so he could not adjust the situation. That was the tempo that he had in his head, and that's it. But reality is different. No way he can get it. And more than that, a little thing more, and then I will just stop with this. You really think that the orchestra of 1800 is the same of today's instruments, and a horn of that era of that period, a trumpet of that period, a violin with the budello strings and with the bows that today are so incredibly well built and they give you all the power in whatever position. At that time, do you think that the bows were like that? Of course not. And what about the winds, clarinets, oboes, flutes? So even if Beethoven was able to go to rehearsal and listen to the fifth or listen to the seventh symphony that he wrote, do you think that he could actually hear the same fullness of sound that we hear today with the symphonic orchestra? No way. He could hear something that was maybe 10 times less in terms of fullness, because the harmonics of a today's trumpet are 10 times stronger than the harmonics of a 1800 trumpet, and so on with the other instruments. So I just don't want to be too cocky about this, but try to imagine and try to figure out all these things that one should take care of when he is thinking about the speed and what should I do and what decision should I make. But there's another element, very important, that so many people even today forget about, and it's acoustic. Just a quick example. Take a symphonic orchestra today, right? They have a certain conductor, certain program, and they go in the studio to record the CD, and then they start touring, and they go for the first concert 2 days after the recording. So they go to the studio, which is perfectly musically built by engineers, and you have all the cutting panels for the frequencies, no echo. The sound is so pure because you have all the microphones, and then you have to mix them in the final passages of the recording before making the CD. And so you need pure sounds, because if you have echo, it's very hard to work on them. And so you get that recording, that performance. Then 2 days after that, they go on tour, and they go to a huge, big cathedral with an incredible amount of echo inside. Let's say that in the studio, the sound would decay in 0.7 seconds. In the cathedral, the sound decays in 3 seconds, right? So you can imagine the length of the sound. Now, do you think that in these two different situations, that orchestra, that conductor, should perform the piece at the same speed? Because it is written 112, for instance, and so I have to play 112. I don't care if I'm in the studio, in the cathedral, in an auditorium, wherever I play it, in open air, or okay, I don't care. It's 112. This is music because it's 112. Or should that conductor say, okay, let's play the piece and let's hear what I can hear? I say, in this cathedral, I cannot hear anything. All the fast passages are impossible to just slow it down, take it down, slow it down. Is it this a betrayal of the composer heritage? Or should I consider that I'm betraying the composer because I'm following one number, which means nothing at all in music, but I am following one number and I don't care about the results, about what I can actually hear, what people can actually hear. I only care about that number. What is music after all? So just to finish this video, I would like to show you a little schemes that I did. And let's start from the idea that to choose the right tempo, I should put one sound, one event attached to the next, so that I can hear the first, I can hear the second, but I can also actually create that nexus between them. Look at that. If I go too fast, what happens? Those two events are one into the other. I cannot actually perceive the first, I cannot perceive the second, but I hear a mixture of the two, which is absolutely unclear, and I cannot make a relation. What if I go too slow? Same mistake. The two events are far apart. I can hear the first, yes, I can hear the second, yes, but I cannot relate them because it's an empty space here in between. So no music at all. If I put them one close to the other, I have the maximum richness that I can get of the various events, but I also can create the nexuses. So to end this video, look at this really little thing that I did. Just consider the line as the speed, so you can go slower and you can go faster. If we stay in the middle, we can say that if you choose to go a little slower, you have more richness for the reasons that I explained. You hear the full sound in its fullness. If you go a little faster, maybe you can get better the melody because it's a little faster, you know, in its development. But can you actually hear all the complexity of a vertical complex chord with the basses, with the internal voices and so on, with the contrapuntal situation? Probably not. So yes, you have something that sounds more alive, but you lose a lot of the richness of what the composer wrote. So slower is richer and faster is less rich. But if you go to the extremes, too slow and too fast, as I said, no music, no nexuses and no music.